Something has been shifting in NASCAR lately, and if you have been watching every single weekend, you can feel it. There is a story building on the track right now that not many people saw coming. Not long ago, people had very strong opinions about certain things in this sport. They were confident, no debate, case closed. But now, after what came out over the Easter break, those same voices have gone pretty quiet, because what we are seeing on track and what the numbers are now showing are two very different conversations compared to what we were having just a year ago. And if this trend keeps going, we might be looking at a completely different kind of championship picture than anyone expected. So, we have to talk about this. Before we get into it, if you are a real NASCAR fan who loves honest, no-nonsense breakdowns of this sport, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to this channel. We are pushing toward 15,000 subscribers, and this community is made up of fans who actually live and breathe NASCAR. Every subscriber helps us grow and keep bringing you this kind of content every week. So, if this is your kind of channel, join us. Now, let us get into the story. This is all about Shane Van Gisbergen, widely known as SVG. If you followed motorsports outside of NASCAR before he arrived in America, you already knew this guy was something special. He did not just show up out of nowhere. He had already built one of the most impressive careers in the world before ever setting foot in a Cup Series car. He won 3 championships in the Australian Supercar Series, collected more than 80 race wins, won the famous Bathurst 1000 3 times, won the Bathurst 12-hour, and even earned a podium at the 24 Hours of Daytona. That is not just a good resume. That is an elite-level racing career by any standard in any part of the world. Then, in 2023, he came over and entered a single NASCAR Cup Series race, just one race. It was at the Chicago Street Course, a brand new race on a street circuit right in the heart of the city, and he won it in his very first start. That kind of thing had not happened in NASCAR since Johnny Rutherford did it back in 1963. Overnight, SVG became one of the hottest names in all of motorsports. People were talking about him everywhere. What could this guy do if he raced full-time? That win opened the door for him to sign with Trackhouse Racing, one of the newer but very competitive teams on the grid. In 2024, Trackhouse made a smart decision. Rather than throwing him straight into the deep end of the Cup Series full-time, they put him in the Xfinity Series to learn, to understand the cars, the ovals, the style of racing in America. He did well. He won 3 races and finished 12th in the Xfinity standings. Solid results, no question. But when he got the chance to run Cup races on ovals during that season, reality hit hard. His best oval finish was 31st at Phoenix. That one number told a very honest story about just how big the challenge ahead of him really was. Road courses were one thing, ovals were a completely different world. Then 2025 arrived, and he moved up full-time to the Cup Series, driving the number 88 Chevrolet for Trackhouse. On road courses, he was not just good, he was dominant in a way that was almost hard to believe. He won 5 of the 6 road course races on the schedule. He won in Mexico City by more than 16 seconds, which was the biggest winning margin in over 15 years in this sport. He won at Sonoma, making it back-to-back victories on that street circuit. He won at Watkins Glen, and he won the Charlotte Roval. By his 38th Cup Series start, he already had 5 wins. The last driver to reach 5 wins that quickly was Dan Gurney back in 1968. Think about that for a second. But on ovals, it was a completely different story, a painful one. His first 3 oval races of 2025 were 31st at Phoenix, 34th at Las Vegas, and 32nd at Homestead. He was outside the top 30 in points for most of the first half of the year, and actually dropped as low as 33rd in the standings before his Mexico City win helped pull him back into relevance. SVG did not make excuses. He came right out and said it himself. He admitted it was one of the toughest starts to any kind of racing he had ever experienced in his entire career. He talked specifically about not understanding how to trust the car in the banking, how to commit to going into corners flat out, how the feel of an oval was something completely foreign to everything he had built his instincts on over decades of racing. His crew chief, Stephen Duran, was also still early in his own Cup Series career, which meant that both of them were learning together week after week and dealing with that frustration side by side. It was not pretty, but they kept pushing. Toward the end of 2025, things started to change, even if only in small ways. He got his first oval top 10 at Kansas. He finished 11th at Talladega and 14th at Martinsville. The improvements were real, even if they were not making headlines the way his road course wins were. He won Rookie of the Year easily and made the playoffs, but the big question that everyone kept coming back to was the same one. Could he actually become good on ovals? Or was he always going to be a road course specialist, someone teams game plan around and then coast through the oval races hoping to survive? That question went into the offseason unanswered. Now we are 7 races into 2026, and the story is getting a lot more interesting. At the Daytona 500, he qualified 13th, led laps, and was running inside the top 10 before getting caught up in a crash and finishing 30th. That result stings on paper, but the speed was genuinely there. At Atlanta, one of the most chaotic and drafting-heavy tracks on the schedule, he had his best oval finish ever, 6th place. He went through the grass twice during that race and still came back and finished 6th. That single result jumped him from 28th all the way to 16th in the standings. That is not a lucky day. That is a driver figuring something out. At COTA, which is a road course, he finished 2nd behind Tyler Reddick, which ended his road course win streak just 1 victory short of tying Jeff Gordon's record. Still, he scored 48 points and moved up to 5th in the standings. At Phoenix, he spun twice but recovered to finish 11th. That kind of recovery used to not be possible for him early in his oval learning curve. At Las Vegas, he damaged his car on the very first lap and finished last, which was a rough day. At Darlington, he finished 14th. Now compare that to 26th at Darlington in 2024 and 20th at Darlington in 2025. The same track, 3 years in a row, and the finishes are moving clearly in the right direction. At Martinsville, he started 5th, ran inside the top 10 for most of the race, scored stage points in both stages, and finished 11th. At one point during that race, strategy even put him up to 2nd place, right behind Chase Elliott. These are not flukes. These are data points in a trend that is becoming very hard to ignore. Right now, he sits 14th in the standings, with only 1 top 5 finish on the year. But he got there through consistency across multiple track types, not just by banking road course points. He's right on the edge of the top 16 needed to make the playoffs. And then NASCAR released advanced statistics over the Easter break, and this is where the conversation really changes. Using something called the Adjusted Points Plus Index, which compares every driver to a series average of 100, SVG is now showing numbers that are above average on drafting tracks and on short tracks. On regular ovals, he is still slightly below the series average, but he is much, much closer than he was a year ago, when his oval numbers were extremely low. That shift in the data is significant. It means the improvement is real and it is measurable, not just a vibe or a couple of good days. Other drivers are noticing it too, and in NASCAR, that matters. These are people who race against him every week and see it up close. Denny Hamlin said that elite drivers always find a way to adapt and that SVG is doing exactly that. Chase Elliott said he's not surprised at all because SVG has a natural feel for balance in a race car. Christopher Bell said he is clearly getting better and that it will not be long before he is genuinely competitive on ovals. Bell also made an interesting point that with more practice time available, like teams used to have in years past, SVG would probably be even further along in his development right now. Joey Logano said he is doing a solid job. His own teammate, Ross Chastain, even joked about looking forward to seeing rugby balls flying into the grandstands at an oval track after a future SVG win. That kind of comment from a teammate tells you something about the belief that exists inside that garage. Right now, within Trackhouse Racing itself, SVG is clearly the lead driver. He is ahead of Chastain in the standings and is finished ahead of him in most races this season. Rookie Connor Zeilish is still working through the adjustment to the Cup level, which just shows how genuinely difficult that transition is for anyone. NASCAR insider Erica Stepp called SVG one of the most impressive development stories in the entire garage right now. And that is not a small thing to say, given all the talent that exists in this sport. What makes people respect him even more beyond the results is his attitude toward the whole situation. When asked about winning on an oval, he did not beat around the bush or give a fake, confident answer. He said plainly that he is still a long way from that. He does not want a lucky win where everything falls perfectly into place through strategy and attrition. He wants to earn it the right way, by being genuinely fast and deserving it. He said he is finally starting to understand the car and improving every week, but he knows he is not there yet. That kind of honesty from a driver who has won everywhere else he has ever raced is genuinely refreshing. It is exactly the kind of mindset that tends to lead to real growth. And in 2026, all of this matters more than it would have just a couple of seasons ago, because NASCAR brought back a format much closer to the old chase style. There is no real safety net anymore. You either perform or you are out. Every race matters more. Every stage point counts. Every oval finish that used to be survivable now has real consequences. That is exactly why this story is so compelling right now, because if SVG continues to improve on ovals the way the numbers and the eye test are both suggesting, he stops being a road course specialist who you circle on the schedule. He becomes a complete driver, a real threat on any surface. And if that happens, the entire championship picture shifts in a way that nobody was expecting when the year started. As a fan who has been watching this every single week, here is the honest take. Shane Van Gisbergen is going to win on an oval sooner than most people expect. Maybe not in the next race or two, maybe not in the next handful of races, but the way he is improving right now is very real. What stands out the most is not just the finishing positions, it's how he is getting those results. He is recovering from mistakes in races the way good oval racers do. He is running inside the top 10 more consistently on tracks that were embarrassing for him just a year ago. He is starting to understand the rhythm of oval racing, and that is the hardest part of this entire journey for any driver who comes from a road racing background. The oval rhythm is something you can barely even describe to someone who has not experienced it. You just have to find it yourself through repetition and seat time and trusting the car. You can see the confidence building in the way he races now. You can see that he is no longer trying to guess what the car is going to do in the banking. He is starting to anticipate it. He is starting to feel it before it happens. And when a driver with his level of natural talent reaches that point, things tend to change very fast. History tells us that over and over again. Is he a championship favorite right now? No, that would be going too far. That is still a step beyond where he realistically is. But if this progression continues through the middle of the season and into the playoffs, he could absolutely become one of those drivers that nobody wants to see in their rearview mirror. He could become genuinely dangerous in a way that changes how the rest of the field thinks about the whole championship. SVG is not just figuring out ovals. He is becoming a threat on them, and that changes everything about how you have to look at this season going forward. If you are new here, welcome to NASCAR Nation Report. This channel is growing fast, and we are pushing toward 15,000 subscribers. If you enjoy honest NASCAR talk with real opinions and real breakdowns every week, subscribe and become part of this community. And before you go, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Do you believe SVG gets an oval win this season, or does he still need more time to get there? We want to hear from you.